Good evening and good morning to everyone. Hi, Phil. A very good morning to you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you great, Victor. How are you?
I am doing extremely great, and it's 10 p.m. in the night here in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. What about you? It's
Eh,
morning there.
It's 10 a.m. in the morning in Toronto, Canada.
Wow. So, firstly, thank you so much. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, here are two people going live on LinkedIn and YouTube right now, where it is a 12-hour difference. It is 10 a.m. in the morning right there in Toronto, Canada. It's 10 p.m. in the night here in Malaysia. And that's the entire essence of, being virtually connected with someone. Today, we have with us Phil Johnson, who is our guest speaker on the Curious Mind series podcast. So, a very warm welcome to you, Phil. A very warm welcome to everybody in the audience who's watching us live, and you've tuned in live. It's a tongue twister to an extremely interesting and dare I say a relevant topic which is close to all of our hearts, and that is none other than on emotional intelligence. Now, as human beings, we are all emotional creatures, aren't we? I am myself a very emotional person, and so are many others like us. While there are pros and cons to it, given the advent of technology and all what is happening around the AI space in our daily lives right now, emotional intelligence amongst human species is vanishing faster than what we all would have imagined at this point in time. So I'm sure all of you are very curious to know what is this emotional intelligence. There has been so much talk around it over a period of time in the last so many years. There is a lot of talk happening right now on mental health. So it becomes extremely important and relevant for us to know what is emotional intelligence. Well, we are honored to and excited to have none other than Phil Johnson as our guest tonight on the Curious Mind series podcast, episode number 21. Welcome, Phil. How are you doing today and how are you feeling today?
I am great. I'm feeling fantastic, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you and our listeners.
Thank you. That's great. And we are honored to have you as well. Well, to the audience who's watching this live, if you don't know, Phil has many, many accolades in his lifelong journey. I will pop in the LinkedIn connection for Phil. You can go and check his LinkedIn profile. There's a tremendous amount of experience. He has a lifelong journey on emotional intelligence. You can connect with him on LinkedIn and also see all what he has achieved till date. I will try to keep it very short because we are more keen to gain his insights than to talk about his immense past experience. So, just to begin with, Phil Johnson has spent close to 25 plus years in this space, and he's the founder and CEO of Master of Business Leadership Academy, MBL, which is right there in the background for him, looking extremely nice. He has coached executives, entrepreneurs and organizations around the world to achieve career, personal, and business success through emotional intelligence and authentic leadership. Residing in Toronto, Canada, Phil's mission has been very simple to help people develop the habits, the awareness, and the trust that creates lasting results. Not to forget, Phil has been on numerous podcasts and online media. He's been on YouTube many a times. He has done a lot of talks. He's also been a host to a podcast, and all in all, spreading all his knowledge and expertise on this topic with a sole motive to create more awareness. So let's unravel all of Phil's insights and thoughts on this ever evolving topic on emotional intelligence. Are you ready, Phil?
I'm ready, Vikram, and I'm overwhelmed by your introduction, so thank you.
Most welcome. That was extremely brief and concise and very, very precise. Didn't go overboard with it. Now, before we begin asking Phil those questions, shooting down some questions to Phil, let me remind to all our viewers the entire essence of the Curious Mind series, LinkedIn and YouTube live podcast is not to share the questions prior with the guest speaker. So, Phil's responses today will be purely based on his experience, his expertise, his knowledge, and his wisdom. All which was agreed between, he's smiling right now, but all which was agreed between me and Phil was that we will have a topic covered on emotional intelligence in an unplugged manner. So we are exactly going live in a very unplugged, unfiltered, unedited format, which is entirely what is the essence of this podcast. And the key is to providing a platform and an opportunity to our audience who are watching us live right now to ask any questions which are popping your mind. So if you have any questions, we are going with a blank slate. We don't know who you are. If you're watching this live, you can ask, you can type those questions either on LinkedIn or on YouTube, and we will pop them up right here on the screen and we will ask Phil. So let's begin with the first one. As I get the ball rolling and we warm it up a bit. What, according to you, Phil, is emotional intelligence in a layman's language?
Very simply, it's the ability to feel the fear that change and innovation triggers in us and be able to recognize it and move through it towards what we're trying to achieve, as opposed to allowing that fear to keep us stuck in our comfort zones.
Okay, okay. So where does the fear then arise from? Is it from childhood? Is it happens during teens? Does it happen during when you're adult? At what point in time do we get the feeling of fear, which leads to something like this?
That's a great question, Vikram. Thanks for asking it. Um, we get bombarded with fear messaging daily, and we don't like change. We don't like change, whether it's good change or bad change. Um, we have a resistance to change that's both biological and sociological.
Hmm.
So we often allow our ego-based fears to blind us to the reality of the present moment, to pull us out of the present moment. And these fears can go back to childhood or actually at any point in our life. So it's a huge problem. The other thing I'll say about this that's really important for our viewers to know is that all behavior originates from emotion. All behavior originates in the part of our brain called the limbic system. So before it actually gets to the thinking part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, we've already decided emotionally what we're going to do. So if that's true, if you think about that, and that's true, and it is,
Hmm.
it makes sense that we should be become more intelligent about our emotions. we should become more aware of our emotions. And historically, intellectual intelligence without emotional intelligence has proven to be quite destructive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very extremely important part of our development that we need to focus on. And it's something that really our educational system and employment system really hasn't focused on. It's focused more on our ability to do intellectual labor and has done actually very little to develop our emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. You've kind of covered it with a very wide lens at this point in time, which kind of leads me to the next interesting question. Now, there is a lot of talks around EQ, and we are talking about emotional intelligence, EI, if I were to be precise. Now, what is the key difference between having a high EQ or having a high emotional intelligence, EI? Are they both the same, or
Yes,
there is a difference between them? And it would be nice again if you can explain in a very layman's language if there is a difference, or they're both the same.
sure. Um, there's no difference. Let me make a couple of comments. There was a 40-year study done at UC, University of California at Berkeley that compared intellectual intelligence with emotional intelligence that
Mm-hmm.
concluded that emotional intelligence was 400% more valuable in achieving success than intellectual intelligence. You see, our intellectual intelligence is not something we develop, we inherit it. We inherit those genes. If we have a high IQ, our parents had a high IQ, their parents had a high IQ, and we simply inherited those genes. So not
Okay.
everybody can have 150 IQ like Einstein, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody can develop their emotional intelligence, and the ROI is massively greater than intellectual intelligence. Let me give you a little bit of a numeric comparison. Think
Mm-hmm.
of intellectual intelligence as somebody giving you $10,000 a day for 31 days.
Okay.
So at the end of 31 days, you've got $310,000.
Correct.
Think of emotional intelligence as a penny that doubles in value every day for 31 days. So day one, you've got a penny. Day two, you've got two pennies. Day
Mm-hmm.
31, you've got $10.7 million. Day 40, you've got over 5 billion. Day 50, you've got over 5 trillion. So
Mm-hmm.
not everybody can have a high IQ, but everybody can develop their emotional intelligence. The other thing I want to say about this is that in the 20th century, intellectual intelligence was highly valued as a way to succeed. But in the 21st century, it's emotional intelligence. The other thing to keep in mind is that it's estimated that in the next 2 to 3 years, AI will have an equivalent intellectual intelligence of over 1,000. So the real differentiator in the 21st century is the development of our emotional intelligence, and that's something that everybody can do.
Okay. Okay. We have James who is saying not today. Uh, I'm not sure whether you know James and he's pulling
I,
a leg on something.
I know James. I was actually on his podcast a few weeks ago. So,
Okay. Hi, James. And I'm not sure what is not today, context to not today. I think it is more about the emotional intelligence not being there today. Is that right?
yes, we are we're facing a tsunami of rapidly accelerating global change that we, quite frankly, are completely unprepared for. And
Mm-hmm.
it's causing us to often react to the challenges we're facing as opposed to respond to the challenges we're facing. So we really need to, the development of our emotional intelligence is essential to our ability to respond rather than react to the changes we're going to be facing.
Okay, okay, very interesting. Thanks, James. Thanks for watching us also live right now. Um, Continuing to what you mentioned, Phil, at that point in time, that 400% research shows EQ is 400% more powerful than IQ at this point in time. And I've taken EQ and EI are pretty much the same. And you mentioned that differentiator of the century will not be strength or intellect, because thanks to AI, a lot of people are getting at the snap of my finger are showcasing extreme intelligence at any point in time, because you can go on chat gpt, you can go on copilot, you can go ask ai, wherever you can go, there is tons of information and available. So the differentiator according to you would be emotional intelligence, or our ability to manage emotions, build trust, inspire others, and respond consciously rather than react out of fear, which you just mentioned some time back, will determine our effectiveness as collaborators, leaders. Can you give us a little more emphasis on this? Why this is becoming so much of prevalent? Why it is becoming so important in today's world? Why?
Okay, what I'm about to say may cause you, our listeners, our viewers, to pause. Um, we're actually at a tipping point as a species.
Mm-hmm.
It's estimated that in this century, we're going to experience the equivalent of 20,000 years worth of change, or 200 centuries worth of change. So change is increasing at an exponential rate. To put it in perspective, a 10-year-old today, by the time they're 60, will be experiencing roughly a year's worth of change in a week and a half.
My
So we
God.
have we have no idea what the future is going to look like. Um, but there's a part of our brain called the amygdala that has been really trying to keep us safe for hundreds of millions of years by making
Mm-hmm.
sure we never leave the perceived security of our comfort zone. So if we do, um, it automatically triggers a release of a hormone into our bloodstream called cortisol, which causes
Mm-hmm.
the executive center of our brain to shut off, and we go into what psychologists refer to as an amygdala hijack. Some people lash out, some people run away, some people freeze like a deer in the headlights. When that happens in conflict situations, people often die. When it happens in business or personal situations, relationships die. We burn trust. So, as an analogy, if you think of your amygdala as a very frightened 4-year-old child, the development of our emotional intelligence acts like a big brother or a big sister to quiet the amygdala response down and better enable us to feel the fear and anxiety that change and innovation always triggers in us, be able to recognize it and move through it rather than being controlled by it. So, the development of our emotional intelligence is the next stage in our human evolution that we must pursue
Mm-hmm.
in order to deal with the future we're facing, in order to deal with the challenges we're facing. You see, we're all being ripped out of our comfort zones.
Correct.
We have no choice about that, but we need to be developing our emotional intelligence so that we can respond to the challenges we face rather than simply reacting to them based on often fear.
Okay. 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 That's great. That's great. Um, Going a little more deeper and continuing on the fact of fear and how that triggers, we have none other than somebody who supports us quite well on the Curious Mind series, Vignesh, who's asking the next question. And he listens to us quite regularly. So, hi, Vignesh, to you. Hi, Phil. Fear is a seed sown at the very early years of one's life. Fear keeps shifting from one place, situation to situation. The EI goes down whenever fear pops up. How could one work towards overcoming fear and stabilizing emotional intelligence to perform better? Good question, Vignesh. I didn't have it on my list. Up to you, Phil.
Well, fear is really a way by which we can recognize and move through our fear. See, fear's not a bad thing. I mean,
Hmm.
there's good reason sometimes to be afraid. We should never step off a curb in front of a bus. That's not a good idea. But a lot of the fear that we experience um, is psychological, and it's driven by our ego-based fears. And um, it's right. A lot of these fears go back to some of our strongest fears go back to early stages in our life, and it creates what's called an emotional anchor that makes it easier for us to feel that fear and cause us to trigger our walls going up, and we become more resistive, judgmental, and attached to outcome. But really, the development of our emotional intelligence is a completely different type of intelligence than our intellectual intelligence, and it's essential for us to recognize and face our fear and move through it rather than allowing ourselves to be controlled by it. We,
So, so
what
would
I,
you
what I was,
mean?
go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, continue, continue.
I,
Please
w- I
continue.
was, I was just going to say, throughout our life, and even more so now with social media, we are
Hmm.
being bombarded constantly with fear-based messaging.
Hmm.
Um, and that's causing us to be much more reactive. It's causing our walls to go up. And um, most people don't have the awareness, the emotional intelligence to respond to the challenges, respond to the fear. And so they simply are reacting to it. And that leads to what's called an amygdala hijack. And it triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response, which is not a conscious response. It's an emotional reaction to the fear we're feeling.
Hmm. Interesting. So what I'm trying to arrive at, and probably also Vignesh, is if suppose I'm in that situation, I
Mhm.
follow Twitter a lot, I follow X a lot, and I'm reading is negative news happening around in the world. Now, if I'm listening to something happening, for example, in Canada, I'm miles away, I'm 12 hours away, but it is somewhere emotionally creating a fear in me at this point in time. Now, in a situation like this, what do I do from an emotional intelligence level to say I acknowledge it and then I address it? Or what would you suggest as step one, step two, step three kind of a
Uh, Step one, join the MBL program.
thing?
Um,
There you
but to get to some things you can do right away, um, focus on your breathing. If you
go. Mhm.
simply focus on breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, it shuts off that voice in the back of your head because it enables you to become more present in this moment. See, when you're present, um, often it's referred to as a state of flow with the
Hmm.
present moment. When you're in the present moment, uh, that voice it gets turned off because you're not thinking, you're focusing on what's right in front of you. Um, See, our ego doesn't want us to be in the present moment. It wants us to be focused on some mystically better future moment or some past moment, but it doesn't want
Hmm.
us to be in the present moment. And the reality is, all that will ever exist is the present moment. So the more we focus on this moment, the better the results we're going to get, and the more we're going to be able to recognize and move through our fear rather than being controlled by it.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. I have a question, but something very similar. James is asking, so I'm going to pop up that. Well, before I do that, Vignesh, I'm sure Phil has answered to you on your query. If not, keep asking, and Phil and myself are right there to answer to you. Now, popping up of what James says in the same space, Phil, in a world where leaders are rewarded more for their IQ than their EQ, how do we encourage leaders to develop their EQ? Excellent question, James. It was more or less on my list as well, but I'm so glad you asked. Thank you.
Um, Better results. The development of emotional intelligence has consistently proven to lead to higher levels of trust and engagement. Currently, according to Gallup,
Hmm.
the current level of employee engagement worldwide is around 21%. So that means that 79% of people are either disengaged or, in some cases, actively disengaged in where they're working. And that level of engagement is costing the global economy over $9 trillion every year, and it's accelerating. So people are becoming less engaged. And the level of engagement within a company is a direct reflection of their level of emotional intelligence in that organization. So it's reflected in the toxicity within the organization and the level of drama, chaos, and conflict within the organization. So developing your emotional intelligence not only leads to higher revenue, uh, it also leads to higher levels of trust and engagement within the organization. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is important for anybody in a business, all purchasing decisions
Hmm.
are made in the emotional part of our brain, not the thinking part of our brain. Um, so, by developing your emotional intelligence, you're literally able to outcare your competition. You're literally able to develop deeper, more trusted advisor relationships with the people you seek to serve than your competitors. And I'll give you an example of a company that's currently valued at $3.5 trillion, and they're doing about $600 billion a year in revenue.
Hmm.
And their entire hiring focus for the people in their stores is emotional intelligence. That
Wow.
company
Okay.
is that company is Apple. That's why
Hmm.
when you walk into an Apple store, the energy you feel is an example of a more emotionally intelligent environment. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're trying to understand your pain and, if possible, offer a solution. They want you to have a great experience, and maybe you'll tell your friends and they'll tell their friends. And if you think about it, the way you feel in that environment is very different from the energy coming out of the stores surrounding that environment. So that the development of emotional intelligence is the next stage in individual and organizational change. So more and more companies are hiring, developing, and promoting largely based on emotional intelligence.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I just have one question before there is another one, another person asking a question, which I'll pop onto right now as we
Sure.
are diving a little more deeper into it. So, how does a leader who is extremely high on IQ, who has, say, for example, grown up the ranks in an organization thanks to the IQ, highly intellectually capable, highly result driven, good visionary, now suddenly is expected to build his EQ. Question number one, is that possible? Question number two, how?
Question number one, yes. Question number two, get into the MBL program. Let me. So you bring up a good point. A lot of executives in organizations, and I've dealt with lots of them over the last 21, 25 years, um, they're scared to death. because they know what got them to where they are won't get them to where they need to be. And to some extent, they feel like they can't ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
So they get together in little groups of other executives and they kind of hold they kind of hold each other's feet to the fire and say, well, what's working for you? This is what I'm seeing. These are the challenges I have. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's essential for the leaders of these companies to be developing their emotional intelligence to be better leaders, um, and to inspire the rest of the organization to move in that direction. If you need a title, see, leadership's not a position, it's a choice. If you
Mm-hmm.
need a title to get people to follow you, you are not a leader. And the thing is, let me take a step back here and explain for a second. We Because we've evolved over hundreds of millions of years from tribes,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we've had to develop the ability to sense whether somebody's trying to help us or hurt us. So we have these specialized brain cells in our prefrontal cortex called mirror neurons.
Mm-hmm.
Your viewers can Google it and read about them. That's how when we walk into a room, we can sense the energy in the room. When we're having a conversation with somebody, we can sense whether they're trying to help us or hurt us. Okay?
True.
So as you develop your emotional intelligence, people are they're going to begin to sense that they can lower their walls and be more of who they truly are around you than they can be around their victim buddies. And that leads to higher levels of trust and engagement and all the other stuff. The bottom line is that if you're an executive in an organization and you're
Mm-hmm.
not actively working to develop your emotional intelligence, your job is at risk because we simply cannot continue to exist with these low levels of employee engagement, with these low levels of customer engagement. And the key to changing that is the development of our emotional intelligence.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Well, moving on very quickly, I'm going to move on to the next one. I hope you're fine with that, Phil. We are halfway through our discussion, and the time has just flown by like anything, but it's as engaging as it is. But thank you. Before I say, James is saying I have to run, but excellent session, just as I expected. Thank you, James.
Thanks,
I'm sure I'm
thanks,
doing
James. Good to see you or
good to
hear
see
from
you,
you.
James, and I'm not doing anything major in that. It's all Phil and his inputs. Thank you, James, for joining us. Let's move on. A good friend of mine, and somebody who's a very senior person in the sales space, Prabal, is asking you, Phil, how do you balance EQ with results driven agenda? Does high EQ make sales leaders look weak from the receiver's standpoint?
Oh, it's exactly the opposite. The most successful sales professionals have above average levels of emotional intelligence, which enables them to outcarry the competition. Um, yeah, it's what I was saying earlier. All purchasing decisions originate in the emotional part of our brain in our limbic system. They're not intellectual decisions. After we've made the purchasing decision, whether we're going to buy from somebody or not, whether we trust somebody or not, um, it's only then that we start looking for features and benefits intellectually to justify the decision we've already made emotionally. So if you're trying to sell anything to a marketplace, the development of your emotional intelligence can become your superpower as a sales professional.
How? Can you give us an example? Let me put it this way. Can you give us an example?
Well, Apple.
Is Apple the best example? Yes, I mean, I have experienced Apple myself, so I can talk about it, but
Yeah.
I would rather listen it from you.
Think about it, Vikram. Tell us about when you walk into an Apple store. Are there any salespeople attacking you?
No,
When you walk into an Apple store, how do you feel emotionally? Are your walls up or are they down? Are you relaxed or are you on edge?
I'm very relaxed. There is always a person who's smiling, wanting to help me, wanting to understand. If the person doesn't know, the person will guide me to another person who's equally helpful. And
Right.
I have, till date, touch wood, I've really not had a bad
So
experience
that's
at Apple
that's
Store
an
ever.
example. That's an example of an emotional intelligent environment. That's what occurs in emotional intelligent environments. Think about this. If if you're in sales,
Hmm.
so first of all, sales should never be about revenue generation.
Okay.
By the way, I was an executive in the semiconductor for 20 years prior to becoming an executive coach and sales and all of that. I've been teaching sales for about 45 years. Um, but if your objective walking in to see a client or a prospective client is to sell them something, your energy level is completely different than if you're going in to see that person with a desire to understand what they want and how you may or may not be of service. So revenue generation is the result of providing authentic service. It is not the focus. So in order to provide authentic service, you have to care about the customer. And that caring comes from emotional intelligence, recognizing that we're all connected. It's not me against you. It's what can we create together.
Hmm. Okay. Very
So,
interesting.
so revenue generate. Most companies are focused on quarterly numbers, monthly numbers, whatever. It's the wrong focus. Revenue should never be the focus. It's the result. The focus needs to be on providing authentic service first. That's what Apple does when you walk into the store. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're saying, hey, how can I help? I don't know if I can or not, but
Hmm.
tell me what you need, and if I can help, I will. If I can't, I'll let you know. That's
True.
how you
True.
that's how you build trust and higher levels of engagement.
Okay. Very interesting. And the fact that how it is built right from the top, that a layman is experiencing right at the bottom, which is at the store, is in itself a study about emotional intelligence, that how they ensure that it goes right through the value chain across employees, across hierarchies, across all levels.
And if you think about it, people are so stressed for the most part, whether they recognize it or not. They're in a low grade with an amygdala hijack, so they're really overwhelmed increasingly by the rate of change in their lives.
Hmm.
If you can create a culture, if you can create an environment that's welcoming, that helps people to lower their walls, they'll figure out ways to buy things from you. Anyhow, you look at Apple, people are hanging around the store, even the people that aren't going in the Apple stores are hanging around drinking coffee, sitting at tables and stuff like that because they just want to be in that energy. They just
True.
want to they just want to be in an environment where they can relax and not feel like they're being attacked.
Very
And
interesting.
that and that is directly related to our level of emotional intelligence.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. I hope Prabal still has answered to your question. If in case you have a follow up, feel free to ask. And I'm sure, given the sales leader Phil has been in the past. He will have pretty much all the answers to your questions, or like Apple says, probably he might say, I don't know at this point in time, which I doubt will happen. Moving on, James, I don't know whether you're still there, but yes, you can watch this, the recording of this, which would be continued to exist on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. So probably, Phil, you can drop a note to James as well. I will do too. That there is on this very link, you can continue to watch the video. The recording will be very much there. Now, let's move on
Sure.
to why in the leadership space and how is emotional intelligence crucial uh, over a period of time for effective leadership, why it is so important for leaders to be effective in that world.
Because if we're not emotionally intelligent, we're adding to the drama, chaos, and conflict within the organization. Um, if we're not working on the development of our emotional intelligence, we're part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Mhm, mhm.
So we need to be developing our emotional intelligence so we can be seen as part of the solution that leads to higher levels of trust and engagement and reduces the toxicity within the organization. It's a massive problem. It's a massive problem.
Yep.
So the solution is we've all got to be working on the development of our emotional intelligence. We don't have a choice if we want to succeed. We don't have a choice.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, which brings me very nicely to the next question, which is, what are your top 5 tips, Phil, on how on your 5 tips to enhance your emotional intelligence over a period of time. So suppose, take it for example, I've been in the HR space for the last 15 years. I am a good mix of high levels of IQ, done pretty well in multinational organizations. I'm okay on EQ, not too high, not too bad. But then if I now want to step up the ladder and grow in an organization, in a workplace, what would be your top 5 tips for me to enhance my emotional intelligence over a period of time?
Join the NBL program.
Yes, definitely. That is the third time you're
Okay,
saying that, but
and
I will market that for sure.
I'll keep saying that. But I'm going to give you an example. See, at a deeper level, um, this all comes down to energy physics, and I want to
Mhm,
explain. Give me a, and I'll give you a good example. Um, the drama, chaos, and conflict we experience is a result of the habits that we've unconsciously created from an early age that cause us to give away our energy. And we do it in lots of different ways in how we communicate, listen, take responsibility, make decisions, all sorts of ways. But when we give away our energy, it creates an energy deficit in us. So at the
mhm.
same time we're unconsciously giving away our energy, we need to be replacing that energy by stealing it from others. And that dynamic is going on inside of everyone, everywhere, all over the world, all the time, unconsciously. So let me give you an example. This is actually one of the MBL habits called authentic listening. The key to authentic listening is not to take anything personally. How somebody feels about you, whether they like you or whether they don't, has nothing to do with you. It has to do with what's going on inside of them. But if how we feel about ourselves is based on how anybody else feels about us, who's running our life, us or them?
Us.
No, it's them. We're giving away our energy to them
To
to
them.
determine how, if you like me, I like me. If you don't like me, I don't like me, right? Now, as
Mm,
crazy as that sounds, what I've just described is all of social media. We bend
Yes.
over backwards to get people to like us so that we can feel better about ourselves. Okay? So that's just one way that we're unconsciously giving away our energy to other people. But you see, it doesn't stop there because at the same time we're giving away our energy, we're also trying to replace that energy by stealing it from others. And those people can be people we work with, customers, family members, the guy at the grocery store. We don't care. But that is the root cause. That dynamic that I've just explained is the root cause of all drama, chaos, and conflict. So, what we really need to be doing is developing better habits to stop giving away our energy. See,
For
we're only,
example,
let me, pardon? Hang on.
oh,
Let me, we're only actually conscious about 3 to 5% of the time. The rest of the time, we're relying on our unconscious habits, those neural network pathways that we've developed through repetition to create the bulk of our behavior and our results.
true.
So the results we're getting are a reflection of our current habits. We cannot get better results with our current habits. If we want better results, we have to develop better habits. And those habits are the habits that cause us to stop giving away our energy, that brings us into the present moment. One of the benefits is emotional intelligence, another one is authentic leadership, higher consciousness, higher levels of trust and engagement, which leads to career, personal, and business success. So the fortune cookie version of all of this is
Hmm.
that whenever you raise your walls and give away your energy, whatever happens next is always a bad thing. Whenever you lower your walls and stop giving away your energy, whatever happens next is always a good thing. And one of those benefits is emotional intelligence. We're continuing to develop our emotional intelligence, and the ROI keeps getting greater and greater. But that's just one of the benefits, one of the many benefits that we receive by simply learning to stop giving away our energy.
Excellent, excellent. Great insights to all our viewers who are listening. We've gone quite deep into the conversation, which I'm personally quite enjoying. I hope you are enjoying that too, Phil, as you answer on that. I'll continue. You have, with the next question, you have trained, coached, guided thousands and thousands of professionals and organizations around the globe on emotional intelligence field. Can you share with us what are some of the common misconceptions which still exist, and what can we do as a community we can do about it? Anything what we can do about it? What are the common misconceptions which still exist about emotional intelligence?
I think the fundamental misconception is that emotional intelligence can be developed by reading a book or watching a video or having a conversation like this one. This conversation will do nothing to develop emotional intelligence because these are intellectual processes, and the development of emotional intelligence and leadership is an experiential process. It's not an intellectual process. It always requires an initial leap of faith because you can only connect the dots in hindsight after you've taken the leap of faith. Often people going through the MBL program
Hmm.
um, say to me, "This is, it's amazing." I mean, and I ask them pretty much the same question: is there anything I could have said to you in the beginning before you started down this path that could have helped you to understand what you understand now? And the answer they say is always no. There's nothing you could have told me. There's nothing you could have said to me that could have helped me to understand what I understand now. See, that's the difference between knowing something intellectually and knowing something experientially. The development of leadership and emotional intelligence is an experiential process. So if you know something and it's not reflected in your behavior, you
Hmm.
don't really know it. You just think you know it. Okay. The real key to knowing is not only do you know it, intellectually,
Mm-hmm.
but you also know it experientially. And that experiential component is where all the good stuff happens. It's how we raise our level of emotional intelligence and leadership, and it's the key to better results. It's not intellect, it's emotional intelligence. It's the experiential process of developing this capability.
Nice. Very interesting. Very interesting. And um, what are the biggest challenges? You're coaching a lot of leaders also through the MBL program. What, according to you, are some of the biggest challenges leaders face when they try to lead with emotional intelligence? When they are conscious about the fact that they need to lead with emotional intelligence, they're trying it, but
Yep.
obviously, given the toxicity in the
Yep.
environment, in a
Yep.
workplace culture, what are the challenges they are facing?
Great question. Um, the bigger the organization, the harder it is to change the culture within the organization. The 20th century was all about bigness and economies of scale of bigness and all of that.
Hmm.
But in the 21st century, that bigness in many respects has become a boat anchor to success, innovation and success. So the key, to answer your question, the key is you have to be developing more individuals within the organization that are working on their emotional intelligence. See, what actually happens is the more people that you develop within your organization, it's actually reducing the level of toxicity. It's actually reducing the level of drama, chaos, and conflict. And it's forcing people to change or leave the organization for a more chaotic organization. So you can heal the organization um, by developing the emotional intelligence of the individuals within that organization. So you want to look for people that have an urgent desire for better results than they're currently getting, because that really creates the motivation for change. And then you want to help those people to develop their emotional intelligence. Not only are they going to get better results that other people see, but it's also going to start to inspire other people to want to follow their example. And that's really what inspirational leadership's all about. It's not what you
Mhm.
say, it's about what you do that
Yeah.
inspires people. So for that executive running that toxic organization, they've got a big job. But it has to start out with them developing their emotional intelligence and then looking for people within the organization that are willing to do what I call the emotional labor of developing their own emotional intelligence. And the more that that happens, the more that you're going to see the level of toxicity begin to drain out of the organization.
Okay. Okay. So is would that would I categorize that as one of the biggest challenges for the leaders to build a future generation of leaders which are high on EI? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
it's they have no choice. They have no choice. And I don't say that I understand the challenge, but really they have no choice because without it, the organization just becomes more and more toxic. And as I say, the level of employee engagement worldwide isn't
Yes.
improving, it's getting worse.
Leads me very nicely to the next one. How do you foresee, and it was right there as a question, so I'm not building a question up, it's pretty much there. So, how do you foresee emotional intelligence shaping the future of leadership in years to come, wherein we all know, and I do a little bit of talk on generational talent and workforce generational talent. So, wherein the Gen Y or the millennials and pretty much the Gen Zs will start taking over the mid to senior level leadership roles
Mhm.
over the next decade or so. So the question is, how do you see, given the current state of affair we are in, emotional intelligence shaping the future of leadership with Gen Ys or the Gen Zs?
They have to. They need to be able to respond to the challenges they're going to face rather than react to them. And that requires emotional intelligence. There's no choice. Emotional intelligence has to become a multi-trillion dollar a year industry in order for us to survive, period. Our educational employment system has failed us because it's focused primarily on intellectual um, intelligence. So
True.
we've got a lot of catch up to do to balance our emotional intelligence with our intellectual intelligence. Um, and it's going to require a massive focus. Um, but we really don't have a choice. We're facing this tsunami of change that's increasing the level of fear, of isolation, of drama, um, and the development of our emotional intelligence is the solution.
Which is exactly what leads to my next question, which is we're already facing a challenge wherein you're saying tsunami of change, wherein children, preteens are finding it rather difficult to
Sure.
emotionally connect and build relationships, wherein most of the communication is tech driven, whether it's through WhatsApp,
Yep.
whether it's through social media, or
Yep.
whichever form. In such a scenario where they are hardly in person communicating with each other at an higher EQ level, what would be your key tips for today's generation of parents, somebody like me, towards nurturing a more emotionally intelligent next generation of people? It's a long question, but
Well, no,
the
it's actually an easy question.
okay.
Um, it has to begin with the development of the emotional intelligence of the parents because they don't have it either. You can't give something to your kids that you don't have for yourself. The parents need to model emotional intelligent behavior and the results that that creates. The same way an executive within a company needs to model emotional intelligence and the results that that creates. So if you want to help your kids develop your emotional intelligence,
So would that mean tomorrow morning onwards, I flip the coin a little more, and as a responsible parent, I become more towards caring, giving, understanding, listening. Uh,
it's
in a
yeah,
different way, do I show the softer side of me much more to build?
it sounds easy to do, okay?
Mhm,
The words sound easy, but in
mhm,
reality, it's very hard to do
yeah,
because keep in mind, we're only conscious about 5% of the time. What the parents need to do is they need to be developing the habits that enable them to stop giving away their energy and
mhm,
stealing the energy of others, which includes their kids. Um, so we don't know what we don't know. It's called metacognition,
mhm.
but you can't change behavior until you change your habits, until you develop better habits, because that's what behavior is. So
True.
you have to develop habits that enable you to increase your level of emotional intelligence. And that, the behavior, the results that that produces will be noticed by your kids and incentivize them to want to follow your example. The converse is also true. If you have habits that cause you to give away your energy and creates drama and chaos, guess what
Mm.
example you're setting for your kids to do exactly the same thing, right? Greatest form of flattery is imitation. So
Yes.
you want your kids to imitate the emotional the emotionally intelligent behavior that you're demonstrating. So it's got to begin with you as a parent or you as an executive within an organization. It's the same thing.
Same.
If you want your employees, if you want your customers To be motivated to follow your example, you've got to be working on the development of your emotional intelligence. See, the opposite drives people away.
True.
And really, to attract people, you want to be developing your emotional intelligence.
True, true. Very nice. Very interesting. We are on the hour, but if you don't mind, can I extend for another 5, 7 minutes? I have a couple of questions, and
Absolutely.
then we have the fun rapid fire round. So we
Sure.
will wrap up to our audience also. You're okay with that, Phil, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And to our audience also, we will, yeah, I'm conscious we are on the hour. I generally wrap up my podcast within the hour to be conscious of everybody's time. But I have a couple of questions. If you still have any curious questions popping up your mind, feel free to drop them in the comment section and we'll be more than happy to ask. But while I do that, a couple more from my side. How can emotional intelligence help in managing remote or hybrid teams, especially after the pandemic? The world has gone 50% remote hybrid. How do you develop?
Same thing. It, you don't have to be sitting next to each other.
Mm-hmm,
Um, I work with people in 16 different countries,
mm-hmm,
um, like this. Um, it's great if you can be in each other's energy,
mm,
but it's not a requirement. When you lowering your walls, developing your emotional intelligence and the behavior that connects you with can be felt across distance.
true, true. Okay, okay, okay.
Th- This 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 podcast is an example.
Yes, very true. Miles apart, 12 hours time zone apart, and still connecting very well. And we haven't even met each other in person. So, this is a very good example of
Yep,
emotionally connecting and taking it further. Very
yep.
true. Okay. Um, for a normal human being like me or anybody similar to me who's striving to do well personally and professionally well in life, what key steps he or she should take to cultivate emotional intelligence within themselves? So if I were to say what would be my top three key steps I should do to cultivate emotional intelligence within me, what would you recommend?
Hire an emotional intelligence coach because you don't
Okay.
know but this is the point. You don't know what you don't know,
Hmm.
and you need a guide to help you on the journey so that you can begin to become more aware, more conscious of what you don't know.
Hmm.
Okay?
True.
So, um, you need help. We need somebody been there, done that, and can take us on the journey to be developing this capability. You can do it on your own. You can do it on your own. Anybody can develop emotional intelligence on their own by learning to recognize and move through their fear rather than being controlled by it. It will
Hmm.
probably take decades. Working
Mm-hmm.
with an emotional intelligence coach can shorten the time frame to better results.
True, true. Okay, okay. And lastly, what would be your one key takeaway message for the audience on this emotional intelligence podcast? One takeaway message.
Join the MBL program.
Join the MBL program. So I would reiterate that for our audience who don't know, the MBL program is a very successful program led by Phil himself. There is enough in content on it on the web. I will share the link on the LinkedIn site as well. So please go look up for it. It's a great program for anybody who's keen to undergo, whether it is on a personal space or whether it's in the leadership space or in a workplace. So, yeah, highly recommend to all our listeners.
Can I just make a comment, Vikram?
Yes.
Um, I love I love what I do, and I love helping people. I love to watch the lights come on as they become more conscious of what's going on in them and around them. Personally, I've been on this journey for 56 years, since January of 1968, and in December I'll be 72 years old. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't be recommending this if I didn't know that it worked. Honest to God, I wouldn't. And I wouldn't be pursuing this if I didn't realize how incredibly important it is. So you can work with me or you can work with somebody else, but regardless, really make the effort to become more emotionally intelligent because it's the key to career, corporate, and business success in the 21st century.
True. Thanks for that. And with that, we will quickly wrap up the officially asked questions on the podcast. We still have a round, which is called the fun rapid fire round, which will be hardly five questions asked to you, Phil, which would be nothing to do with emotional intelligence and just to know a little bit more about you as a person and for our audience. And by then we'll wrap up the night. So, are you ready for the fun rapid fire
I
round? Five questions.
I am. Go ahead.
Which is your favorite sport and why?
Basketball. I played basketball for 50 years. I love it. I I just I love the smell of the basketball. I love playing it. I love playing with people. Um, I love the watching it. I love the ball going through the hoop. Um, it's interesting. When I'm playing basketball, it calms me down. It's just a little story. I don't know. Michael Jordan playing
Yes,
basketball.
yes.
Um, I guarantee you, he didn't know when he was going to pass, shoot, or dribble. Michael Jordan playing baseball had to think about playing baseball, and the results were a lot less than playing basketball. See, playing basketball for him enabled him to be more present in the moment, and that's what it does for me.
Wow, very well put. I'll just add on to it. If you've seen Formula One movie, um,
Yeah.
there is this scene where he's in the moment, where he's in the race, and that is the moment wherein you are in the present. You are in
Let,
that moment.
let me make a quick comment here. I know we're kind of short on time, but being in that present moment is a primal urge that we have. It was first noticed back at 415 BC. We spend over $4 trillion every year globally trying to be in the present moment. Most of the ways that we try and do that, we're trying to shut that voice off in our heads.
Hmm.
Most of the ways we try and do that are destructive and actually cause us to become less conscious. But learning to lower our walls actually enables us to become more conscious. But what I'm saying is that we're all trying to shut that voice off and be in the present moment. And learning to stop giving away our energy is the way to do that.
Excellent, excellent. Second fun rapid fire question. Have you ever traveled to any Asian country? If yes, which is that one thing you really loved about it in Asia and you miss the most?
Japan and
Okay.
sushi.
Not
Um,
surprised.
yeah, I at one point in my career I was traveling about 60,000 miles a year, which is a lot. Um, but I guess the furthest I've ever gone to an Asian country is Japan, and so it was it was an experience. But my traveling days are over.
Nice. Favorite holiday destination and why?
Um, Hilton Head, South Carolina. My wife and I uh, would go down there regularly. It's kind of like one of those places. It's right on the ocean, and
Hmm.
it kind of feels like you're coming home.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, it's very it's a great feeling.
Okay. Okay. If you had a choice to be reborn again as a human, would you like to be reborn as Phil Johnson or someone else, or probably Michael Jordan?
No, uh, I wouldn't want to be anybody other than who I am. It's taken me almost 72 years to get here. No, I, I've discovered over many decades what living and working on purpose means for me, and I'm very grateful, and I love my life, and I love the opportunity to serve people, help them to become more conscious and get better results. I just love it.
Awesome, awesome. And that's exactly with that motive what we are doing today, right now. It's interesting. We started the podcast with a little bit of fear mentioned as part of emotional intelligence, and I had no plans of it. But my last question on the fun rapid fire round is, what is that one thing you feel are scared of?
Hmm. Uh, Losing my wife.
Mm-hmm.
She's had a couple of different types of cancer over the last 20 years, and I would be devastated if I lost her.
Well, wishing her all the success and the love and happiness and great life ahead. And with that, our fun rapid fire round does come to an end. With that, also, our live podcast comes to an end on Emotional Intelligence Unplugged. It was great to have candid insights, lot of knowledge. We deep dived into a lot of aspects in a very short span of time, which just flew by. I personally didn't realize when 1 hour, 12 minutes have gone. But I'm not sure about you. Phil, any parting words to our audience? Anything you would like to leave them with?
Take what we've said in this podcast to heart and really dedicate yourself to developing your emotional intelligence, please. Um, it's so important, not only for you, but everybody you come in contact with. We cannot continue. We have to change our trajectory. Have to. And the key to that is the development of our emotional intelligence.
Thank you, Phil. With that note, I would like to wrap up today's thank you to all the people who have heard this live either on LinkedIn, you've engaged with us, or on YouTube. Thank you so much. Do take away what Phil has mentioned, and I personally agree. We need to make this world a better place, a more emotionally intelligent place for everybody to live in and thrive. With that, it's a wrap from our end, and wishing you all the very best until we'll meet next again with the next episode. A good night from us and a good morning for the rest of the day. Have a good day ahead for everybody, Canada or US or that part of the world. Thank you so much. Bye bye. And thank you, Phil. It was an honor to have you on our show. Thank you.
My pleasure.